all these changes on the receiver, but until you hit the done button, nothing really changes. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to put the shut back in, shut space, and hit OK. Notice that it didn't take effect yet. It still says doors, but as soon as I hit done, boom, now it says shut doors. So that's a simple one, okay? Now, I'm going to show you probably the most complex button that I have on the deck, which is the F'd up, okay? This is the one that took me a lot of time to build. So if I come into the F'd and I look at the commands for this guy, you're going to see that there's quite a lot. And I mean, I don't want to get lost in all the details of this. And let me turn off the fall leaves for a second so I can show you a little bit more of what's on the board. But basically what you'll notice is I have a whole collection of commands that are happening in a certain order, okay? And for people that are into the Lioran board, they can probably appreciate what's going on here. But for the average streamer, they probably wouldn't, right? Like, this is probably way too much. Most streamers are just going to want to turn on an animation, leave it on for like 3 seconds, and then turn it off, okay? This one is a little more complex, and I'm going to try to explain briefly what it does, and then I'm going to step you through it on my actual stream to show you step by step how it works. So the first thing that happens is it turns off the main background. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. I'm going to turn off my main background. Then it turns on a new background, what's called the F'd up background, okay? So instead of the normal background you see with the water and the sky, it's going to be like the dark, creepy version of that, okay? So that's the first thing that happens. Now, the next thing that happens is, see how it says main desktop webcam? It has a starting XY and a final XY. So basically, it takes my camera view of myself, and it takes that view and it's going to start moving it. This is the motion, okay? And the XY defines like the top left corner. So as you can see, it's got a really small X because I'm way to the left, and I have a really big Y because it measures down from the top. So I have a really big Y, so I'm really down low. So I'm in the bottom left corner. So that is the exact position actually of where my camera is right now. That's like the starting point. And when it's finished, it's going to end up at this X and Y, which is like up, higher, and to the right, over that way to the right. So that's how my camera is going to go drift upwards and to the right, okay? Also, you'll notice the duration is 7,800 milliseconds, so 7.8 seconds. So this is the tricky part, because everything in this little script has no sound. There's no sound inside this script. All this thing does is handles the motion, my camera sliding up and to the right. So later on, there's going to be the sound of the breaking glass when the shatter happens, but that's done outside the script, and I'll show that to you in just a minute. All right, so you have the camera that's moving its XY position, like up and to the right, but then right underneath it, you have one that says motion scale. So this one is motion position, and then this one is motion scale. That means as the camera is going up and to the right, it's also getting bigger. So it's like a balloon that's blowing up, right? Now the question is, how much bigger? How did I control how much bigger? Well, see this final X scale and final Y scale says 1.9? That means almost 2 times bigger. So I had to kind of experiment with the size to get it right, because I've got motion and I've got size, and when it finished, I wanted to make sure that it ended up in a certain spot on the screen, and I wanted it to be a certain size. So that's how I used the combination of that motion and that scale. And then under that, then that's pretty much it. Now, notice the timing on the right. Those first 5 things happen at 200 milliseconds, so like right away. And then after 8.3 seconds, my camera's there. It sits there for about a second or so, and then the glass shatters, and you see my head busting through the glass. And then it stays like that for a second, and then everything goes back to normal. So that's what it means when it's like, there's the F'd up glass, like right in the middle. That makes that image appear at 8,300 milliseconds. And then a second or two later, everything goes back to normal. So the desktop puts the webcam back where it goes at the bottom left corner. It puts it hides the F'd up glass, makes it go away. It hides the F'd up background, makes it go away. Then it puts the regular background back in place, and then it puts the PUBG image, the normal image, back in place, okay? So that's basically what the script is doing. Now, the interesting thing is...
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know.
Happened?
I know, that is a lot. That is a lot. Now, what's critical is the timing on this, because even though there is no sound associated with the actual script itself, there is a sound associated with the trigger. So then you might say, well, what's a trigger? Well, the trigger is the thing that makes it happen. If I edit the trigger, you can see right here, the thing that makes this happen is the command word F'd. Now, who can execute it? I can, the broadcaster, a mod, or a sub. Only those 3 people can execute it. But here's the thing. I also have a sound effect tied to the trigger. So the moment that the trigger happens, there's a sound effect. And the sound effect is called effed up scratch break. Now what's funny about this sound effect is it actually has a little sound at the beginning. It has like a record scratch, and then it has a long pause with like no sound, like maybe 7 or 8 seconds of no sound. And then it has the sound of the glass shattering. And so the timing had to be perfect. I started out with the sound, and I knew the amount of space in between. Oh yeah, and also the guy is talking in the middle. So there's like a record scratch, then there's the guy talking about how it's a screw up, and then there's the shattering of the glass. So what you'll have to do as a streamer, whenever you're trying to match the sound with the animation, that's where you have to play with these numbers, the delay. The delay is the key to everything. If you get those numbers right, everything will happen perfectly. And then when it's done right, and you click the actual button, then it looks like this.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Okay, and so like that's the final effect. That's pretty much how it works when it's working perfectly. But now, if I wanted to just step you through this briefly, if I put the PUBG image back, this is kind of like my default layout, right? So I've got a background, I've got my regular setup, and then this is what would happen. First thing that happens when the script runs is it goes over and it turns the background off. So see what happens? The background's off, and so it's black. And it also turns the PUBG image off. So let's turn the PUBG image off. So now we're at this point, right? And so now we come over here into the overlays, and it's about to go completely black because my overlays has nothing except for the 2 champagne bottles. That's it. Overlays are designed to... That's the place where I keep all the little, all the animations. Every animation that I create, it all lives here in the overlays. So whenever things happen, these things are being turned on in the overlays scene, okay? So all the things are here. So the first thing that happens in the overlays is it turns on the effed up background. So it looks like this.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So yeah, somebody executed an overlay while we're in the overlays. And so you see the overlay, but you don't see me. That's pretty much how that happens, okay? So then you have the camera. So if I go back to the main, so now here's me. I'm on the camera, but notice that everything's changed, like the background. We've got the messed up background, and I can't simulate the camera going up and to the right and getting bigger, because that's completely done by the script. But you can use your imagination and you can say, oh yeah, that's what would happen. And then the very last thing that happens is over in the overlays menu, we basically turn on the glass right here. Now you didn't hear the sound because the glass is just an image, right? It's just an image on top of the effed up background. And that's pretty much it. So those are all the pieces of the things that you can do when you're building an animation that involves sound and transition.